Ready.
Okay, welcome everyone. This is a council committee of the whole meeting. The purpose of this evening's meeting is to receive the climate action plan. The climate action plan is much anticipated. It has been a process over a couple of years now involving many people who have sacrificed of their time willingly and joyfully to create this plan. And so without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mayor Osbacher and the administration to enlighten us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Certainly members of City Council and members of the Board of Public Utilities, we're pleased this evening to present this plan to you. You'll remember that in July of 2021, City Council approved resolution number 3799 calling for a sustainability and climate action plan. The resolution authorized the formation of a committee that was to consist of internal and external stakeholders, and their charge was to draft a document which has now been renamed to the 2024 Climate Action and Resiliency Improvement Plan. So the Climate Action Planning Committee was formed and first met in August of 2022 with the goal of presenting the plan to the community in 2024. So after much hard work and due diligence, we are pleased this evening to present this plan. I wanted to take just a couple of minutes and share my appreciation for those that were involved in developing the plan. As has been mentioned, there was a good deal of work went into this plan, and I think that the plan has at least exceeded my expectations. Not that I really knew what the heck it was going to look like because we've never done this before, but the final plan truly is an impressive document that does identify certainly opportunities for us as a community, options for us to consider and to further our efforts of sustainability moving forward. So I do want to recognize the members of the committee. Amanda Gamby, Bowling Green, City Bowling Green Communications Director, chaired the committee. Marissa Beckstein, representing TMACOG. Jim Evans, retired Bowling Green State University geology professor. Nick Hennessy, BGSU Sustainability Director. Mick Murray, City of Bowling Green Public Works Director. Jim O'Neill, BG Assistant Utilities Director. Rachel Sizer, BG City Sustainability Coordinator. Katie Thompson, Economic Development Director for the City of Bowling Green. And Tyler Williams, Plant Manager for Southeastern Container. So thank you all very much for your work, and with no further delay, I'm going to pass it to Amanda in order to share some highlights of the plan.
Sure. Thank you, sir. You do see up on the screen the names that Mayor Osbacher just mentioned. I also wanted to take a minute and just thank these folks, many who are sitting here in the room this evening with us. When we initially set out to tackle this, very first climate action plan for the City of Bowling Green, I think we were very, I'm not what the right word is, but we thought we were going to have it done in a year. It's now been two for many reasons, which I will not entirely go into this evening and bog down your time. But these folks, have really stuck it out, that entire duration, which is just incredible because many of them are volunteers from the community who have lent us their expertise and many, many hours of time. So a thank you from me as well. I wanted to go into just a little bit of how the committee was formed. When we originally created this committee, the intention was for it to be made up of both internal and external members. There were specific focuses that we wanted to tackle with that in mind. So when we first started this process, I was the city's sustainability coordinator. So it does look a little weird on this document for the communications director to be the chair, but there was a change in title. Joe Fawcett, who was the assistant the assistant administrator at the time. He spent the first year putting many hours into this work as well. You don't see his name on here because he's a traitor, and we've removed it. But in all seriousness, from the internal staff, we have myself, Mick Murray from the Public Works Department. Obviously, as you'll go through this document, you'll see that, from our recycling programs on down, they have a hand in a number of our initiatives. We also had Jim O'Neill, the Assistant Utilities Director. The utilities section is probably one of the largest sections of this report, so obviously we wanted to have a representative from that department involved from the get-go. We now have Rachel Sizer, who is our new sustainability coordinator, who came in at the tail end and who will be helping us carry this forward. And then from the community, we had Marissa Beckstein. Marissa is a regional planner with TMACOG. We work with TMACOG on a number of initiatives, from transportation initiatives to stormwater management programs, water quality programs. She has a tremendous amount of knowledge in the planning world, so she was an incredible asset in helping us to sort of organize the plan and think through how best to lay it out. Jim Evans not only lent his expertise from being an expert in geology and hydrology, but he comes from the collegiate world, and spent, I hope you didn't count the hours, Jim, but many, many hours helping to draft and work through revisions with us, and that was incredibly valuable, I know, to me, because I haven't been in college for over 20 years, so writing a paper well and citing sources was a tremendous asset, so thank you, Jim, for that extra time. I don't think Dr. Nick Hennessy is here. I do not see him. Many of you probably know him from BGSU. He is their sustainability director, and we partner with BGSU on a number of initiatives, so it was important that they had a voice in this plan. In some cases, what we do here impacts their ability to push forward their own sustainability goals. Katie Thompson with Economic Development, and also Tyler Williams with Southeastern Container. Again, the decisions that we make here locally impact our businesses, our industries, and our residents who are living and working and trying to do business here. So we didn't want to do something that would maybe move us forward tremendously in a sustainability initiative, but then raise, say, rates like through the roof or something that would impact those efforts. So it was important for us to have those folks in the room to just have that expertise and that voice. So I do have a timeline up here because I thought it was important for us to kind of go through the processes that we've taken to get here. Many of them have built upon the other to get us to this final document. Many of you in the room have been engaged in this process for many years, so you will remember that Mayor Osbacher had formed a sustainability advisory committee, and that committee pulled together an inventory of all the sustainability initiatives that the city was undertaking. So they did much of that work through COVID, and completed their plan and presented that to council in March of 2021. It is included as an appendix in this final document because we felt that it was a nice base for us to work off of, so you will see that referenced in this final document as well. As Mayor Osbacher mentioned, back in July of 2021, City Council approved resolution number 3799 calling for the Sustainability and Climate Action Plan. We then formed that committee in August of that year. August 30th of 2022 was when we completed our greenhouse gas emissions inventory. We used a tool called ClearPath, and that is a tool that is provided to us as part of our ICLEI membership. We were also assigned an advisor who worked with us through that process and helped to set us on the path for beginning the draft climate action plan. The greenhouse gas emissions inventory was also presented back in that August 2022 timeframe, the committee felt it was important to also include this as an appendix because it is a prerequisite to completing a climate action plan. So you will see that included in here as well. Fast forward here to August 2024, and what we present to you is the Climate Action and Resiliency Improvement Plan. And as we work through this presentation a bit more, I'll explain a bit why the committee is making the recommendation to add that resiliency component. Wanted to share a little bit about the committee's process. As I mentioned, the committee members first reviewed the Sustainability Advisory Committee's sustainability inventory. That was a great starting point. We then met with all city departments. We did that independently, and committee members went out and met not only with department heads, but also employees who are ultimately going to be the ones who carry many of these initiatives forward. Many of them had great ideas. They're experts in their field, so they were able to say, you know, oh, let's try this. We're thinking about this, or oh, we hadn't considered that. It was really great for us to get out and really start to dive into even things that maybe they didn't realize were sustainability initiatives that they were already considering or researching. We reviewed climate action plans from other communities. You'll see those included in our references. We also met with consultants who've completed other plans. There was a moment when we had thought, well, maybe we need a consultant to help us get this to the finish line. So we started, you know, we met with just a couple of them, and when we started hearing price tags like hundreds of thousands of dollars to complete a plan, we sort of resolved ourselves, you know, like we can do this, like we can get this to where it needs to be. Like I mentioned, we had an ICLEI advisor. They're assigned as part of our membership. So we met with them periodically, especially when we were working through the greenhouse gas emissions inventory. We still do have an advisor assigned to us. That person has changed, but Rachel has been engaging with them and building a relationship with the new person filling that role. We met regularly to review sections of the draft. And, you know, at times it required further discussion and understanding, and in which case, you know, we scheduled additional meetings or we took additional time to work through some of those. And in many cases, it was difficult for us to keep up. We would get a section completed, we'd make a recommendation, and then a month later, you know, the city's urban forester would get a grant for some really cool canopy program that we had just said, you should do this. And then all of a sudden we were doing it. So then we'd have to go back to that section and change it to continue to do, and then maybe add this. Or, you know, in the transportation section, we had talked about, you know, shared use paths and things like that. And, you know, should seek funding, should do this. And before you know it, we've already completed the Safe Routes to School plan. I mean, things were just moving quicker than what we could type, which is really great. But you'll see that there are still some things in here where we still have room for improvement and places where we can add. A little bit about the content when actually, I'll just go ahead and pull it up. This is linked on the webpage, and I know this is just to see the excitement in the room is really cool. You never know what kind of attendance people are, you know, who's going to come to the meeting and who isn't. We were literally working on this down to the wire. So I've had many calls from a lot of you saying, can I please have it? And we literally didn't have the final copy until this afternoon. So final edits have been made. It is posted to the website. For those of you in the audience and City Council, and I see some utility board members in the room, you have this in an email form as well. But I do want to just pull it up on the screen because it's a little bit easier for me to talk to it or about it with it being up. So one of the great things about this is that Rachel went through and has bookmarked it all for us. It is a close to 300-page document. when you include appendices in it. This is a sustainability initiative, so we really didn't want to print 300-page binders for all of you. We will do that because I do understand sometimes it's easier to review a hard copy. So if that's the case, please let me know and we can certainly get that for you. But for ease of use, the table of contents, scroll down here, have all been bookmarked so you can jump right to a particular section. And then you'll see here on the side as well, you have just a nice little, quick jump. Or if you're going back and forth between sections, we're hoping that that helps to navigate such a lengthy document electronically. But again, if you'd like us to print it for you, we certainly just let us know. So in table of contents, you'll see that, I can jump back. I can use my own tips and jump back to it. That would. So it does have an executive summary at the very front. You'll also see a section on equity and environmental justice. This is a bit new in the planning world, and it's something that we're seeing more and more in the sustainability field. It was something that was important to us to include in this document because we wanted to make sure that it wasn't an afterthought. We also are seeing that it's becoming a prerequisite for some of the funding that's tied to climate action planning. So if you completely ignore this in your planning process and disregard these initiatives, then you sometimes exclude yourself right off the get-go from even being considered. So it was a step that the group took to add that in and make sure that we were looking at that. So that's something that may be a little bit new to some of the folks in the room, but it is a section that you'll see in here. It was important for us to talk about the implications of climate change. I think, like scanning the crowd here, the majority of folks I see at other sustainability events, and I think many of them believe in climate change, but there's still a very politicized topic, and folks are very much still divided on whether or not it's real or isn't real, and this isn't the meeting for that necessarily. But we wanted to make sure that folks were aware of some of the implications of global climate change. We do talk a little bit about the greenhouse gas inventory. Again, that's included as an appendix. We spend considerable amount of time going into the electrical transmission and distribution system, the power supply, where we get our power, what could be done, areas of improvement, recommendations from the committee. And then it's kind of laid out similar to the greenhouse gas emissions inventory. And then it then goes into some of our highest sectors of greenhouse gas emissions based on that inventory. So we then get into water and wastewater treatment facilities. Some of you will recall from that inventory that those are our biggest buildings that we own and operate and some of our largest emitters of greenhouse gas emissions. So they have their own section. Buildings and other facilities, transportation, waste diversion and recycling, green spaces, not necessarily from the standpoint that they're contributing to greenhouse gas emissions, but because they can be one of our paths forward to helping to reduce the amount of emissions that we're putting into the air. We plant more trees, we remove more emissions from the air, that kind of thing. So there's an entire section on green spaces, education and outreach and community involvement. And then you'll see some talk of the resiliency improvement. You'll also see in one of the appendices a vulnerability assessment. And it was important to the committee to include this because we're already seeing the impacts of climate change. Anecdotally, you can look out your back door and you can see that our rain events are becoming more extreme, heavier rainfalls in shorter amounts of time. We're having more days with heat over 90 degrees than we've ever had historically. I mean, we can see these just from our own day-to-day lives, and then we can delve into the research more and see how those impacts are spread even further across folks who experience hurricanes and other weather events. So it's becoming very common now in the planning process to not only have a climate action plan to help reduce the impact that you're having on the climate, but to mitigate the impacts of climate change that we're already seeing. In many communities, if they're a little further along in their climate action planning, they're now going back and doing a resiliency plan as well. So not only are we going to try to prevent more harm, but we also need to deal with what we're seeing. I mean, we're having flooding, we're having more tornadoes than we've ever seen. Those kinds of things, you know, you can't just ignore them and pretend that they're not necessarily happening. So you'll see that the vulnerability assessment has been added as an appendice, and then in the document itself, it talks a bit about resiliency improvement and references that vulnerability assessment. Again, also becoming a prerequisite to some funding sources. We did a lot of work with the Wood County EMA folks who just completed their 5-year update to their local hazard mitigation plan. And so if you don't have those things in place in a plan and funding becomes available after an emergency, you don't get to apply. And sometimes those application periods open like that. I mean, overnight a tornado hits and the funding source opens up within a week or two. And if you're not ready to move, you can't pull an application together that quickly. So that sort of lends itself to a new title. Instead of completing the processes independently of one another, the committee is making the recommendation to change this to a climate action and resiliency improvement plan, and we've merged it all together. It took a little bit more time, but I think in the long run, it's certainly made a better document for your review and ultimately sets us up better as a community. We do go into some findings and benchmarks. You'll see that throughout the document. Every section has recommendations. Every section has, you know, benchmarks and tables and things to sort of say when we short-term, long-term, intermediate term. I mean, that's all throughout the document, but then you'll see it also repeated there at the end, in addition to possible funding sources. And then, of course, as I mentioned, references and our appendices are all listed here. Let me hop back over to my slideshow and there we go. Hopefully works. Went through these already. Some next steps for us from the committee standpoint, and where we're kind of at now, the CAREP, which sounds a lot like carrot to me, but the CAREP has been emailed to City Council and the Utility Board for review. Again, paper copies are available if you need them or if you'd prefer. We're happy to get those to you. Community members who'd like to review this, you'll find this under the sustainability section of the city's website. It's the entire document, so again, use those tabs to help you navigate. And while you're all reviewing the plan that we've sent you for consideration, Rachel and I especially are going to continue to work through the best way to communicate the progress on this plan. There's a couple of different options that we've been considering. We have a really great GIS department. I mean, there's a real good chance we could build out our own dashboard for this. Again, it would be public facing, so it's something that everybody would have access to. We also came across a couple of cool tools and tricks at a conference that we were just at. We haven't had a chance to go back and explore those further, but we think there's some possibilities there. So we're going to continue to work through that. ICLEI has a climate and sustainability communications cohort, of which Rachel and I have joined, and that offers us some review and some expertise and guidance as well. So we may get, again, another option to consider for that. And then I will add that we're probably close to doing another greenhouse gas emissions inventory. I mentioned at the beginning that we used the ClearPath tool, which served us well. Full disclosure, we really struggled as a committee to understand the backside of that. It did a great job telling us what we were emitting, but it was very cumbersome to then put things in and have it spit back out. You know, if you do this, you're going to reduce this much by this much time. And I think they were getting similar feedback because we just got word that they've partnered with a company called Climate View. More to come on this, but I'm hopeful that it's going to improve the platform. And so we're keeping a close eye on that as well to see if that benefits us in the long term. And really, that is the 300-page document in a nutshell, so to speak.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Amanda? Comments, observations?
I just want to thank you all for doing this. One of the strengths of the city is community members and the expertise that's in the administration, and it all came together, which makes our job a whole lot easier and more thorough. So thank you very much for this.
All right. Guess if I'm hearing nothing else, thank you very much for this. I look forward to opening up my laptop and diving into all 300 pages, and then we can sort out what the next step is from here. So thank you very much. This committee meeting of the whole is adjourned, and we will have Act number 2 in about 32 minutes.